person that just moved in one of these two rooms.
We're documenting a structure that we found last night.
I'll go up to the house, bang on it, and say, "I do not believe."
Yeah.
Now
What the fuck was that?
Did you hear that?
Alright. This is Cryptic Heartland, episode 7 tonight. It's a very hot day in Wichita. Tonight we are doing a very special presentation, but let's first start off. I'm Jason with Everyday Legacy, Road Trip Paranormal, Bigfoot in Kansas, and Ghost Tours of Kansas. I like to keep busy. I have to my left here.
Rove Christopherson with Everyday Legacy and Road Trip Paranormal. Glad to be back. Hope everybody's having a great Father's Day.
Michelle Hartman with Road Trip Paranormal and Everyday Legacy, and Ghost Tours too, actually.
Yes.
And I am Brendan with Bigfoot in Kansas and ELP.
And what he doesn't know is that I put him into Road Trip Paranormal, whether he likes it or not.
I do work with Road Trip. Not to
Trying
leave
to
them out.
shorten.
Not to leave them out.
So, this is our 7th episode. Special presentation tonight. Got my props here for us tonight. If you can't already tell, we are going to be talking about Bigfoot in Kansas. We're going to be talking about Sasquatch or Bigfoot. Kind of going over a little bit of the ins and outs of the beliefs, the myths, maybe some of the jokes.
Yep.
Or the stuff that is really far-fetched about it, but also about the evidence that we have seen for ourselves, stuff that we've read about, listening to this guy who's an encyclopedia on this. But as always, we are doing this show here at a well-known to us haunted location. It's can't tell anybody where it's at, but we've come to find that this place is pretty hopping when we do our shows. Last week, if anybody was watching with us, we were talking about the demonic and evil hauntings, and we were actually going over a lot of that, and we were actually having a lot of things happening here in the building behind us and around us while we were doing that. So occasionally you might actually hear something, see something. I know Leo always talks about that. He's not here tonight. He's having actually a date night tonight with his wife.
On Father's Day?
On Father's Day.
Shame.
I know. Here we are talking about Bigfoot.
He's not even.
Is volume okay?
No complaints so far.
All right. Well, so like we said, we may actually capture something on camera while we're doing this. I know last time we were actually hearing talking behind us. We heard moans. People were actually commenting on that. The
We're
moans
actually
weren't,
recording this time.
and you're recording this time. Good. And the moans weren't coming from Roth either. So
He wasn't even here.
well, we don't know where he was at.
And we've actually we may have heard a whistle earlier.
Yeah,
Just
we hear
hanging
whistling.
out here.
Yeah. We have seen things from that door over there, so, watch out, Michelle.
Yeah,
I'll
you're
grab
closest.
it.
Yeah, grab it and pull it onto camera. Just look right here and smile.
But anyway, this is going to be a good show. I think I've been excited, if you can't tell, with all my I'm going to say props, not dolls, but props. So where do you want to start with this? This is such a huge topic that a lot of people actually know about.
We can go back just, this, when it became into the mainstream media. When the mainstream media took over the Bigfoot phenomenon and moved on with it, we could start there. So that would have been about 1950s and 60s when this all, started to hit the mainstream with prints that were found in Washington and
It was
the
a construction site.
construction site. It was a logging camp construction site, I believe. But prints were actually located there, and the owner of the company that was working the site started to get a little worked up about it and actually went to the local media, brought them out there to do photo shoots and so on and so forth. And scientists started getting interested in it and taking a look at it, and it's kind of moved on, to where we are now today. It just continued to grow and grow and grow and grow. Now it's on TV and it's all over the place with bobbleheads.
It's on TV.
Oh yeah, it's all over TV.
So they found it?
No.
Okay. I didn't know if they had found it or not yet.
No.
but
Finding Bigfoot, they're not finding it yet.
Any cool stuff on the show?
Oh, of course. Always. Entertainment. It's It's always always right before the commercial, too. Right. They notice build that? up to it, and then the commercial, then they come back and you find out it's a crew guy. So you're sitting there for a minute in anticipation.
So I got a question for you, and I know that you've been into this quite a long time. A lot of the stuff that I've been trying to read up on, especially for this show tonight, it seems like it started in North America. Do you know why possibly that is? It seems like all the research that I did, it seemed like it started in North America.
I think there's more sightings in North America. There's Bigfoot-like creatures all across the world. I mean, there's new primates found almost every year. And like Australia has the Yowie and so on and so forth, the Yeti, and but North America, there seems to be a higher interest because there seems to be more sightings.
Okay.
Now, with the Yowie, and that's just kind of fun to say.
Yeah.
With the Yowie in Australia, and then you've got the Yeti or the abominable snowman out in like Nepal and areas like that. Considered one and the same kind of species or different kind of species?
That's a good question, and I really wouldn't know how to answer that, but I guess you can look at it like they're cousins.
Right. Because I mean, everyone's seeing different colors. They're seeing
Yeah.
not just black. They're seeing red, gray, white.
Yeah, and that's just like the North American Bigfoot. There's variants in colors. There's white Bigfoots that are spotted red, brown, brownish red.
So would it be compared to like that of wolves?
Yeah, very similar to the way wolves would be in
It's
their hair structures.
because I mean, there's even been sightings here in Kansas of the sighting. I know there's been a white, like juvenile. People are seeing, there's a big myth with Sasquatch that there's just the one figure. There's so many people who laugh about it, who consider it just the one figure who's going all over the place and causing all these sightings.
Right.
It's kind of like the crop circles. It's one person, it's one creature doing all that stuff all over the world.
And it's not. It's a species. We're not talking about one animal, one ape that can travel across the U.S. overnight. We're talking about a whole species. It's far more than just one animal.
Right.
And I think it's important to point out because we hear that all the time. How could it have been in the Pacific Northwest and then somebody sees it in Oklahoma? Well, it's because there's more than one of them.
Well, and Missouri even has its own name for it, is Momo.
You guys hear that?
Yeah. What is that?
Come on in.
I don't know.
Tonight we're talking about Bigfoot.
Yeah.
If you know anything, if you know them,
You
let
need to
us know.
shed some light on it.
But you've got the mainstream that when it started becoming known in the media, like you said, back in the 40s, 50s, when they were
50s and 60s, yeah.
50s and 60s, when they were actively, I guess, keeping an eye out for it, and people are reporting it in the newspapers. But sightings actually went back to the first time people actually were coming overseas. They were coming onto shore and actually seeing like these giants covered in hair in the woods. And no, it wasn't Native. It was not Native Americans, but they were seeing them. And then you also have all kinds of stories coming from famous people, even like oh, we've got Leo. Is that your phone number? Okay. And just so you know tonight, let me backtrack just a bit. On the screen, you will see a phone number there. That is a number you can call tonight if you have any questions or if you want to ask a question, be involved with the conversation. But by all means, call that number at the corner. Okay. Sorry,
You can also text.
And you can also text. I'm a little bad at hosting. Usually this is Leo's part, so.
You're doing fine.
Okay, good.
We do have a question.
Yes,
If is there a difference between Sasquatch and Bigfoot?
No.
that was just name.
Yeah. Yeah. The Sasquatch was coined a little later than Bigfoot. It was Bigfoot up to a certain point. I can't remember the guy's name. Shame on me for not knowing, but it was kind of a mixture of two Native American languages that the guy put together and came up with Sasquatch, which meant wild man of the forest or something like that.
That's funny.
Yes.
That's
yes.
funny. We also have, a lot of, if you can imagine back before technology and everything, people were actively hunting or searching, a lot of people were actually terrified with the idea of a creature like this.
Right.
There's so many stories from Native Americans who actively believe, if I can say that, they actively believe in Sasquatch. It's I've seen a lot of documentaries. I've read a lot about different tribes, and even the stories of a Native American who left his tribe to go off hunting on his own, ended up being attacked and having things thrown at him like huge boulders and rocks, and he said it was a huge creature covered in hair. And there's stories like that. And over in Asia, there's even stories of these creatures coming into the villages and attacking the women who are out working. People are seeing it everywhere, and it seems to have either a territorial or an aggressive type to it.
Behavior.
Right.
Right.
I mean, it's kind of like the gorilla, basically.
Right. Yes. It's a display of dominance or territory that they will, puff up. There's bluff charges where they'll charge at you and back off the last second. Throw things, break branches, stuff like that. It's very territorial type of behavior.
Right. So, do you think at all that they are related? Gorillas, human, Bigfoot,
I
all
think
that?
there's a possibility that it could be. I really do. I do believe, without a doubt, that Bigfoot is an ape, which would put it in the family with gorillas, chimpanzees, and things of that nature. So, yeah, there's probably some kind of relation.
And there's people who actually are working in a scientific basis to put Bigfoot into the map of like
The
legit,
apes.
of being legit.
Wood ape or something along those natures, yeah.
Well,
There are
I
actual
think
members
it's
of the
important,
scientific
too, that there were ancient giant apes species,
Correct, yes.
actually.
Mhm.
So, one theory I was reading about, they followed the human migrations. So that would explain why they're all over the world. They followed, when the humans came, they came along with
They
it.
follow the land bridge and so on, yeah. There's also the Gigantopithecus theory, where they think it may be Gigantopithecus or some relative of that ape species. So I figured it was pretty interesting.
I mean, why not? I mean, just like everybody else kind of evolves and changes, you know.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Gigantopithecus, they're estimating it was how big? Like,
I mean, not a huge.
yeah. There's, I mean,
I
they've
think I read something like 10 foot.
Yeah,
with others
Yeah,
like
it's-
10
yeah,
foot.
yeah.
Yeah.
Because there, I mean, you can look up pictures of Gigantopithecus and next to like a model, they really don't have any clue of how it looked specifically.
Right.
It's you know this. Is it the teeth that they found, or did they find the skull?
The only thing they've ever found of Gigantopithecus is a part of jawbone and a few teeth. So we're talking maybe 3 or 4 teeth and a part of a jawbone, and that's all they have to base what they know about Gigantopithecus. So they're coming with having that, just the teeth and the jawbone, and they're saying that this was an upright walking massive ape, which, you know, that's interesting to me. But, so it kind of falls into the Bigfoot
Right.
category. I can see where they make that assumption.
Gonna have you look at this picture here in just a second, and
Right.
this is kind of we're gonna show some pictures. We're gonna have some audio for you tonight too, but we want to actually show kind of some of the things that we're talking about. So this picture that Max is gonna put up here. Not to mention Max is behind the camera and work tonight along with his wife Jamie.
Hi.
But you know, everyone kind of always says that this is the number one thing you see of Bigfoot. It's just a picture of a.
Yeah, it's a.
It's just a picture
It
of
looks
a.
like a Sasquatch running across the field. Too.
Yeah.
It looks like it's like
Yeah.
big hairy mask.
So
sticking
that
up.
that is your. I mean, everything people when they see it, it's always a blur. It's never anybody capturing. But at the same time, as we have figured out, that when you see something legit, it's hard to ever have your camera ready, prepared,
Yes.
and stuff like that. I mean, unless you're like constantly going out with like a GoPro or something on you at all times, and you're going out into these areas, then you won't know.
Honestly, your camera is the last thing you'll think of if you see one.
Personal experience.
So is there on this particular picture, is there any theory that it was proven to be a legit photo?
Mm,
And the only reason I'm saying I don't hope to irritate anybody on here, but to me it almost looks photoshopped. Because
yeah.
look how black it is, and then if you look around the edges, it's clear.
Well, the actual video shows it running.
Oh,
Yeah, that was from
So
the video,
this is
wasn't
from
it?
a video clip. Yeah.
Of them.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's the reason why it's
And
like
what is this stuff up in the front
that's
around?
tree.
trees in the distance.
That's bushes and trees. And
I mean,
that's-
it's probably
yeah, that's
palm trees. I'm not gonna lie.
That's a flying Bigfoot.
Yeah, it's fine. So okay.
These are trees.
Feet okay?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm just
Well,
going around
maybe
circles.
Yeah,
that's about the only thing you can do
buffering.
Is it?
up there.
I'm just buffering here. Okay.
Because there's a tree right there.
Yeah.
I know it did freeze for a second when I was trying to transition back, but
But so anyway, that's one photograph that is an example of, I guess you can say, the blob squatch. I mean,
It is. It's a little better than most blob squatch that I've seen, but it's still blob squatch.
right. Now, when we say blob squatch, it really has to do with the fact of people taking photographs of the tree line and trying to
Make Bigfoot out of the shadows,
Right.
the tree stumps, the tree limbs, and it's very, very popular.
like, do you see the arm? Do you see the head? Oh, it's right there.
It looks like a nose.
It's almost like Matrix. And
It is. It really is. It absolutely.
I learned
is.
that from you like 4 years ago. Do you remember that?
Is this a video?
See, it's just the video.
Oh.
So if we want to go back, so
A lot of legitimate stuff's probably been thrown to the back burners. It's unfortunate.
But but if you can imagine that kind of creature coming back into like your camp or something like that, because there's stories all over the world of people hearing the footsteps, hearing the growls, hearing the screams. You've got wig knocks. You have all the classic telltales, and a lot of that is only coming through research, right?
Yeah. I mean,
I've got a question.
Yes, ma'am.
It goes back. Why do we have a jawbone from, and I can't pronounce that name, but from 3 million years ago and nothing from modern Bigfoot? Between now and
that's a really big question and a very popular question, and I'd have to go the route of Dr. Bindernagel and Robert Krantz, who are in the scientific community. They're huge names in Bigfooting. But what they did was they went around to every conference that they've been in, and they asked every hunter in the room if they've ever found the remains of a bear that's died of natural causes. And out of 20, 30 years that they've done this, not one hunter can come forward and say that they have. So what happens is these animals go off and die. I know bears in particular will, when sick, will find a secluded area hidden from everything and just pass away. Over time, nature breaks that down until there's nothing left. And I think that's exactly what's going on.
Well, and I mean, you can also think about when's the last time you've gone out to the woods hiking or anything like that. You go hiking.
No, but I know where you're going with this because I've actually spoken to a lot of hunters that, that's their life.
Mm-hmm.
And it kind of threw them for a loop when I actually asked them that, hey, when was the last time you saw, bones of a deer or moose or,
Bear.
Yeah,
Anything.
bear,
Yeah.
anything. And they just kind of sit there and went, they haven't. And we're talking guys have been doing this since they were 9 with their dads.
Oh, yeah.
And they're in their mid-60s now. So, no bones.
Exactly. And out of all these years, for Gigantopithecus, all they have is a few teeth that are part of the jawbone.
So does that mean they're burying their own? Because I don't. It is odd though, because if you think about it, there's a lot of land, but there's so many hunters out there, but yet they don't run into anything.
But how many people have seen bones out there and just said, "Hey, it's another bone," and walk off?
Yeah.
True.
We do that.
I do that all the time. Yeah.
when we're out hiking and in the field and stuff, he'll walk right past it, but I'm like, oh, a bone. There's bones here. And he's just like, yeah, it's an animal.
So let me
It's
ask
a,
you
it's
this.
a, it's a rabbit or it's a deer or it's a coyote or something.
What does
you
it
know?
cost to, let's say you did find something like that, and you're out in an area where, the location where they see it frequently, to grab one like that, put it in a Ziploc baggie, and then bring it to the university or something, just have them check and see if it's,
What would the cost be?
yeah. Maybe
You know,
that's something you can start doing.
that's something I could do. I actually have contacts that I can get a hold of and just send them to them, and they can deal with that. There, if that ever actually happened, that's what I could do. I have contacts in the NADRC, which is the Mid-American Bigfoot Research Center located out of Oklahoma. They have members that could definitely handle that for them. But yeah, it's definitely a good idea to do that.
If you see something different, or out of the ordinary, maybe. Interesting.
There is a story I've read out in Texas where a guy was getting sick and tired of the deer coming into his, and he can see them from his porch. He's out in the country. They're eating all of his vegetables and coming in and all that. So he was gonna kind of sit there and coach him. Why not? It's his property, his land. But he would take the deer. He'd keep the meat and everything like that. He was keeping it out in the out in his barn in the freezer. Well, something was coming into and taking the meat from the freezer. So he stayed out there and watched one time where he actually saw from the tree line a creature on two legs, huge, covered in hair, and was actually walking onto the property. And so they set it up another night, waited, and him and his buddies opened fire on him. And he saw with his own eyes, he said, I hit one. I struck it, he fell. And by the time they ran out there, they could see where it was dragged off. So as if the buddy or another Sasquatch actually drug it off. To do what? I don't know. Bury it? Save it? Who knows?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. I mean, there are people who see and have encounters all the time who don't come forth, or they've tried to reach out to people who are into it and everything like that. Like we get contacted a lot by people who say, I've reached out, I've tried to get in touch with people, and they don't respond or something like that. But I have a story because I've seen it, and I want people to know I've seen it, and that's here in Kansas alone. That's not just other states, that's just here in Kansas, where it's like crossing the street as they're going 50 or 60 miles, and they pass it just in the,
Well, there's that one that comes to mind that I can't even remember exactly where. I think it was in south of Wichita by about 30, 45 minutes. But the guy's going down the highway and
near the South Haven exit.
no, this is
No.
different.
Oh, it's different.
This is a less
Different.
known one. But he's driving. Him and his wife were driving down the highway in the middle of the night, and there was an injured Bigfoot crawling across down the shoulder of the highway. You remember that one?
No.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it was actually going in the picture this way, and it had just stepped over the rail.
There's no picture. No. This, I think he's talking about the one that you just mentioned.
The juvenile.
The juvenile.
Yeah.
Yeah. No,
That's
this
the one
is
that I-
totally different.
That's
Yeah.
what I'm.
This one was actually crawling down the shoulder of the highway as him and his wife passed by. They could actually see that it was injured. They could see the expression on its face of pain and suffering, and can describe the hair color and just details. They couldn't be making it up with the details that they told.
That's crazy. So what? Did they stop or anything, or did they?
I think they made a U-E and came back, and it had gone off the side of the road and into the brush and disappeared. That's worse. Yep.
Gone again.
It's the hide and seek champion.
Now, here's a question for you. Last night when I was doing some research on this stuff, it seems like a lot of people now versus 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, are moving towards it being
Here we
some
go.
type of like spiritual
There we go.
or even alien.
The
Because
paranormal Bigfoot.
well, just for the simple fact that you know, and I'm sure we'll go back into this, later on in the show, the experience I had with you.
Right.
I mean, within 30, 40 seconds, this thing's gone.
Right.
And we actually went out, ran to see how far it could actually get within 40 or 50 seconds, and there's no way.
Right.
So I think some of the stuff that I've been reading is going on to that, but you just don't. Who knows?
The paranormal Bigfoot.
Go ahead.
Well, it just makes sense because, like a lot of people say,
But
I saw it, I found it, but yet no cameras, because some of the articles were saying that most people that find them, they didn't have their camera or it didn't focus right, when they shot the picture. But yet it's right there and then 10 seconds later it's gone. And how does something that big disappear in a matter of seconds?
well, a lot of it is in the woods near a tree line, and it goes in and disappears. Goes behind a tree. I mean, if you go hiking, you can disappear into the brush pretty quickly.
And this is a very large animal. I mean, 2-3 times the size of a deer, and a deer can get out of a hairy situation like that and be gone. So, I just think.
I mean,
it's interesting.
Put it this way, I was with my parents and my wife. We were leaving Branson on the highway. Sorry, a little off topic, but just to kind of go into how quickly it can happen and gone. We're driving. We're probably going 55, 60 miles an hour on the highway, and out from the side, you see a deer come out of the tree line, goes across the highway. Before we could even really say anything, the deer is hopping our hood of the car as we're going. I mean, if I could have reached out, I could have touched the belly of the deer. And it hops the car, boom, gone into the tree line like that. Anything.
Yeah, I would expect that from a deer. That something that's 8 to 10 foot tall and that big is not going to be moving like a deer.
I don't know.
Sure.
But I can't say that.
There's people who have videotaped.
Have you ever seen a
actually.
gorilla move?
Well, I've actually.
Gorillas
yeah,
are,
I guess
yeah.
you're right.
Gorillas can
Yeah,
move.
They're
that
huge,
is true.
and they move
Yeah.
very fast.
I think you're right. You're right.
And as far as the disappearing into the woods, these animals, even deer, coyotes, wolves, bear, you name it, their fur and coloring is natural camouflage. They could be, you could have a bear within 10 feet of you and not even know it, unless you actually hear it, smell it, or something along those lines. I mean, it's got very good camouflage. Nature's camouflage. So.
And a lot of people don't ever see it, because of that. They will, and we'll talk about this one story here in a little bit, but the guy who was actually videotaping, he probably has a very well-known video of it walking, and it's not the Patterson one, the one, the famous one. This was a more modern time video. Yes. The Freeman film, and it's he's been out tracking, and he's actually made prints and casts and stuff, and he's out trying to take a break. And in the video, you see it like this. You see it move and walk and everything, and then it pauses, right?
Yeah, you basically get like 5 seconds of it walking, and then it stops. And when it stops, you can't see it. It's in the brush and in the trees, but it's just, you can't see it. You can see him. Obviously, it stopped to look back at him, but when it stops, you can't even see it until it starts walking again.
Right. I mean, there's so many people who want to connect Bigfoot to lights in the sky. They saw lights and then they saw Bigfoot running down the highway, or it's always running down the highway. Oh, look, there's aliens. I mean, there's a lot of people who are trying to really explain why there hasn't been definitive evidence of it. So they're trying to say it's he's going through portals. You know, it's a being from another time or something like that. I mean, that's what a lot of people are trying to put out there now.
The biggest thing running now from that set of people is the teleporting Bigfoot.
Yeah.
So, you know, and even in that film, there's people from that argue in the Paul Freeman film that when it stops, it has teleported or gone into a portal, and then when it starts walking again, it's stepping out of that portal back into the woods. And
Like it has a built-in bathroom up there. Like, excuse me,
yeah,
guys.
excuse me, I gotta disappear for a second. Then here I am, surprise. But in reality, what you're seeing is the natural camouflage of a large animal taking effect as it stops in the brush.
I don't know.
I don't know. I mean, up until this point, I always thought that Bigfoot was paranormal. Like that it was some sort of, you know, and I don't mean freak as in freak, but mystical creature that could be aliens or something. But
Right.
listening to this, it sounds like it's just an non-discovered
Yeah.
species.
And what I find more and more is as I've been researching is paranormal research. The way I do it has been going on for, you know, ages now.
Right.
And I have to look back at those individuals that's been doing this. You know, the Meldrum, Grover Krantz, Bindernagel, and look at their research. And what their research says is that this is a living, breathing animal. It's not paranormal. It's not an alien. Their research says this because the sightings say this. And when you look at the sightings, you're not the legitimate sightings. You're seeing animal behavior, hunting. It, you know, somebody's seen it hunting. Somebody's seen it drinking from a river, bathing. That type of stuff is what we're seeing. It's and that far outweighs the Bigfoot teleported from a UFO right into the middle of our street.
And since it's been seen and people have witnessed it since, like I said, you know, when the time the white man started coming this way to land, you know, and Indians and up in Alaska, you know, Eskimos and everybody. I mean, natives from there are. I mean, they're in the totem poles. I mean, they've carved them into there. They have. It's part of their mythology and their lore, really.
And that's,
I mean,
a lot of tribes have that mythology, the wild ape man in the forest.
See, that's the part that just gets me. If it's gone that far back, why have they not? Yeah, that's my question. And now, you know, this would have been a great episode for me because you know how I like to debate. And, you know, but I can't now because of what happened in Tahlequah.
I mean, you can try it, but they
beats
throw
me
that out.
because I know Max was like, man, I can't wait for Ruth to be on this show. And I'm like,
I mean, you
I
can
don't-
try, but they're going to
I
be
don't know
like,
what
Max,
to
pull up
do,
that
you
picture.
know? Yeah, yeah, exactly. You know, so it's tough for me. And
And I really do understand the thought behind why hasn't it been discovered by science. But the reason it hasn't is because science doesn't take it seriously. At least, you know, the mainstream science. And that's because of all the hoaxes, and the joking around about it, right? You know.
But there's one company, I can't remember the name of it, that's offering a reward, $1 million reward.
Jack, isn't it the beef jerky company?
That sounds about right, yeah.
Yeah, they're offering.
Jack
but you
links or
can't
something
shoot
like
it,
that?
You can't net it. So, and
right. There's actually, I think, 1 or 2 states have actually made it illegal to shoot it.
Washington being one of them.
Like they're actually trying to
I bet that'd be
protect
a
the
great
idea. I mean, can you imagine? I mean, you do shoot it. Why are you shooting it? For
It's huge.
For because you. Oh, but does that make it a right to kill it?
No.
To put it on a table or pose next to it with a smile and say, "Look what I did." You know.
depends on how you look at things. Though.
Paraded around like a circus.
But how are you looking at it?
It depends. I mean, it's like saying, you know, I mean, to me, you know, I'm open-minded on a lot of stuff, but that's saying, you know, it depends on what you're looking at. If you're a big gamer and you're wanting to go after this thing, that guy is only thinking of a trophy. because that's how his mind's set. You guys are thinking, okay, that's an animal. Why would we want to put it through that stuff? Why would we do this? Some people don't care. I mean, that guy. But can you imagine being that first guy that did it? You'd be famous.
Yeah.
If you carried that thing in and here it is. Now, you may have guys that'll kill you for it because you did it. But you know what? You're going down in history as one of the, you know.
Then you have like, what is the King Kong movie all again, where he escapes into New York.
But it just depends on how you think about it. I mean, I don't know. Me personally, I would not want to.
Brendan, you have someone saying hello.
Hello.
Is Ridicule Gaming?
Never heard of him.
He says hi.
Okay, are you saying that science doesn't take zoology seriously?
Oh.
Zoology, no, but the Bigfoot phenomenon, yes. Yes.
I'm getting questions here, so I'm at. But,
It's the grunt. What's up, grunt?
Oh.
Well, you know, when you have cryptozoology, you know, the study of the unknown, your son.
That's right.
Yeah.
Sorry, Cody.
I don't remember him.
But yeah, you have cryptozoology that is a list of, what is it, hundreds, thousands of species of creatures that people have seen over time and have said, hey, I've seen this. Here's the description. I mean, that ranks up there to, well, like famous ones, like Loch Ness.
Like the Megalodon?
Nessie. Huh?
The Megalodon?
Right. I mean, could it be a real dinosaur or not, you know? I mean, or is it just something else that we don't know, or if it's something just natural and we don't know why it's out there. But you have all strains of stuff. Now, there's even, and I can't remember the name of the animal, but it's at the Sedgwick County Zoo. And it's over by the gorilla site. And at one point,
The copy?
yeah, for the longest time, it was not a well-known creature that they actually did not realize it. You know, it looks half zebra, half giraffe.
Yeah.
You know, but then there it is at the zoo.
And did you know that zoos don't consider themselves a real zoo unless they have an copy?
Are you serious?
Yeah.
What?
That's the way they look at their, yeah, it's like a must-have animal. It's amazing.
Well, and
Is that like the liger?
Kind of, yeah. Definitely.
you know, and that's on the list too. I mean, you have the half lion, half tiger that's supposedly roaming out there. You know, just what was it? Not that long ago, they found new chimps that they never knew existed. They are constantly finding new animals, so why not this creature that's been spotted since early America? You
well, I
know?
think that's why, because it's been spotted for generations, but no physical evidence. No,
But so many people stay, like I say, they stay in their bubble and they don't go out beyond the bubble of
I
life.
have to question what do you consider physical evidence?
something you can.
Body.
A body?
Well,
Uh,
I know there's been hair samples and in fact some of them say that one sample showed that it was there was human DNA with an unknown species too. But you know, something's
But that
that
could
you
have
can.
been, you know, contaminated while they were taking the hair too.
Because
That's just it.
physical
You don't have
evidence.
you don't have hair, you don't have scat, you don't have.
What about prints that have been found?
Exactly.
But those are questionable. Those are not.
Some.
Some maybe, but
They leave
But you
There's-
have to show me to prove
Like
it.
fingerprints.
These
They
prints-
have.
yeah, I can actually. There's a
There's-
whole bunch right
or
here.
like
Yeah.
footprints.
There's a book like right here.
What they're seeing in these prints is it would be insane to think that the level of detail a hoaxer would have to go through to produce these fake prints is just, I don't think it could happen, because what they're seeing in these prints are morphologies, 8 morphologies. We're talking metatarsal breaks where the foot comes down, the pad of the foot could lift up. Like a human foot does not do that. There is nobody that has that type of morphology in their flexation in their foot. Apes have that. they're finding that in these prints here in America.
Then why doesn't all the scientific community agree that it is real?
Because they haven't put one in the
They
zoo.
haven't put one in the zoo or delivered a body to them.
They
And
don't
that's
have-
what science wants. Science wants the body.
That's
And that's the hard truth of the whole thing, is that's exactly what they want.
they want some
Yeah.
physical evidence.
Yeah.
But you have the prints, you have where you can, I mean, there's even been a body print where they act, and it's in here in this
Mhm.
book. This is called, The Legend Meets Science. This is Jeff Muldrum. And explain who Jeff Muldrum is.
Jeff Muldrum is an anthropologist at the University of Idaho, and he's kind of the biggest name in Bigfoot.
He collects the prints. He's gone over them. He studies like all the apes, the chimps,
Yep.
all of them. So he has like a categorized, library of all the primates of the world, basically. And he is starting to become like a huge believer of Sasquatch just based on the prints and the physical evidence of what is being brought to him. What about what some people are saying, like the what do you call it? The fingerprints, the dermal ridges in the prints that they're finding.
And yeah, I mean, in certain situations, they have actually casted prints that have the dermal ridges, and that's another. Yeah, that's another thing about those prints is if they're faking these, that's an extraordinary length to go to fake a print. I mean, it's just.
I mean, you can't fake a fingerprint or a toe print or anything like that.
I think anything's possible, and I think if they want to do bad enough, they would.
Out in the middle of nowhere, in the middle of
Absolutely.
just for somewhere where for just a
Well, you
chance.
see, I don't know the people
chance.
who are doing this.
There are people who hike like very unknown regions or areas that they don't go, like in the mountain. This isn't just, I'm going to drive 45 minutes from town. This is like people who go hiking and research hours out into the wilderness.
Secluded, way far from any civilization.
Well, but what from my point of view, is I don't know this person to know if I can trust them, and it's just like paranormal, anything.
Well, I mean,
You know,
you can say that about anything.
so
About anything. So I mean,
this is why people, I think,
but
distrust what is being brought to the table.
well, then you can say you don't do. You can't trust. Well, that was bad. I was going to say weatherman, but that's a bad topic. No, but like
Physically
you,
walk out your door.
like you can't trust anybody, as in from doctors to lawyers to, and that's also bad. But no, seriously, you by saying you don't trust these people, what about people who study volcanoes, who study
Astronomers.
geology, astronomers, all these people who that's their job and that's what they do. It's kind of like,
But they
what if you tell your
right and
wife?
wrong, so
What if you were to tell your wife, I don't believe what you do because I don't ever see you do it.
You mean what she tells him?
Yeah, she's just telling it. But what I'm just saying,
Right.
what if you say, well, I don't
And
believe
like
you
I tell
because I
everybody,
don't see you.
hey, you got your own opinion. I mean, and that's what's so nice about debate, is everybody has their own opinion, and it is what it is.
I kind of want to add something here because Dr. Meldrum wasn't a believer in the beginning. He got his belief or started to look further into it when he met Paul Freeman, who we just discussed a little bit ago. He met Paul Freeman. Paul Freeman led him to a set of tracks that he had discovered, and he had something to do, so he left Meldrum there to examine it. Meldrum started to look at these prints and thought, initially he didn't believe Paul Freeman. He thought this guy was trying to pull one over on everybody. Then he started to look at each individual step down a whole trail and started noticing different foot morphologies in the mud, from where it actually had flexation, where it slid. He knew that by looking at these and from his experience with apes and prints in general, that this was a living creature. This was not a wooden stamp that he was stamping around in the mud. I mean, that's when he started to think, you know, this thing could be real, and he's gone on further with it since then. And he actually, down the line, ended up buying Paul Freeman's cast collection. He has probably the biggest extensive collection in the United States.
But to me, that still doesn't prove it.
Well, you were saying that it's hard to believe, you know, how do you believe somebody? Meldrum didn't believe Paul Freeman until he actually looked at it himself in the mud and made
Yeah,
his own.
I understand what you're
Yeah.
saying. Still, I mean, it could be the biggest hoax there ever was. It could be. I mean,
I'd have to argue because I've seen them.
well,
in areas where I'm like, why would this be here? You know, it doesn't make sense from where we, Brendan and I, have actually seen prints. I mean, it didn't make sense for something that big to be walking around barefoot in an area where there is nobody around, probably hasn't been around for months, but yet there it was.
Especially on people's property that, you know, don't have horses. So where does the hair come on the barbed wire fences that protect the farmer's land? You know, there's no bears in this area. You know, that, I mean,
okay, the sound is evidently turning off when we show the pictures. You guys know that?
Nope,
Nope, I had no idea.
No.
'Cause
nobody
it's-
said anything.
Oh, my son's listening, so
Oh.
he's texting me as we
Gotcha.
go along here, so.
interesting.
Very.
So we'll only want to put it up for a short bit and discuss
That's
it.
fine. So, like, what we're trying to say is when there's the difference between a bear sighting and a Bigfoot, which is reportedly anywhere between 7 foot to could be, some are saying 10 foot. And you have a bear that has very small width shoulders. You can see the ears poking up, and they only stand up for a brief moment, then they go back down and they waddle off. Whereas they're seeing a Sasquatch that is standing up huge, and it takes off on two legs, breaking through branches and everything like that. That's what people are witnessing. I mean, to me, it's just a far cry from just a normal woodland creature running around.
Well, and another thing that might, if you want to look at stuff, people that have had stuff come up on the side of their house and bang on the houses, the equipment, modular homes. That picture that you just put up, something I noticed is, and with the footprints and stuff like that they leave around, bears leave their claw prints as well.
Right.
And none of these have that. Also, I think if you had a bear that was, I think you would see a lot more. If that was a bear or something that was out there shaking a house or doing something, I think you would have possibly some scratching, because most of their paws that you see have got 2 or 3 inches of claw.
Right.
And that's not what you get.
And usually the tracks will be rooting through, and there'd be bears scattered everywhere. So makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, I never really thought about it until now, but just by that picture that you saw,
And there's so many stories out there that it would take us forever to go over every single one. I read stories of them watching and learning from somebody entering their own house and stuff, where they've gone up to the house, jiggling the handle because they've seen the human open up their front door and go in. They're walking around the house. There's 911 calls of people seeing it on their property as it's going into their barn or into their shed, and it's walking around, and they're like, I see it with the light on, the yard light, and it's the bull light, and it's right there. It's this gigantic creature. You can see the muscles. You can see everything.
Right.
And to me, that's hard for me to let go away, because you can hear on 911 that this person is freaking out. Now, could it be made up? Who knows? But it's a 911 call. I don't know.
It's interesting that you say that, because I know when I first met you, Jason, I don't think I've ever told you this one, Brendan. And Dustin, if you're out there and you hear the story, you'll be like, woohoo.
I was thinking about this story.
I have a buddy of mine that lives out in the middle of, out in Topeka, and I mean, we're talking almost an hour. I think he said 45 minutes to an hour away from life. His uncle purchased some property and basically built, like the big dump trucks and stuff like that go, that he needed lots and lots of land and build a business out there with all these dump trucks and so forth. And he had some farmland out there, and they set a house out there in the middle of nowhere. And one night, Dustin and I got home really late. It was probably 2 o'clock in the morning. We had just gotten into town. We went downstairs into the basement, and we're getting ready to crash. And we're laying down. There's a sofa here and a sofa here. Along the sofa, there's a window that goes all the way over, and then at the end of the wall, there's a door. I guess you can walk out onto some land out there. So, anyways, we're completely, lights out, and all of a sudden we hear some type of. It was almost like a growling noise, something kind of weird. And I remember waking up, going, "Dustin, did you hear that?" And all of a sudden, some banging was going on against the wall where the long sofa was at. And of course, my buddy Dustin, gets up and starts to look out. I go, "Dustin, don't look out the window. Nobody makes it when they look out the window. Don't look out." And he's like, "Well, something is obviously out there." And so, just as he started to move the blinds back, and of course it's pitch dark, we hear this shaking. And we look over, and man, I was done at that point in time. The handle on the door on the outside was moving. And then we heard a bang. You hearing that too?
Yeah.
And we heard a couple bangs, and then it was gone. And so we thought it was his brother.
Right.
Oh, did you guys hear that
What
again?
was that?
So we thought it was his brother that possibly was, knew we were in town and was, coming over to mess with us. But then the next morning I thought maybe might have been some wood that his grandpa had or his uncle up against and was making the banging noise if the wind was blowing. Well, when we got up there to breakfast, Dustin asked him, he said, hey, is such and such here? And they said, no, he's out of town. And Dustin just looked at me and was like, and I started thinking, is that somebody trying to break in? Problem is, the closest neighbor is an hour away. So, and if you were trying to break into a place, I doubt if you would go banging up against the wall, working your way around to the door and then shaking it. Who knows? But when I met him and I told that story, just a few minutes ago when you said a lot of times it will set out on the outskirts and watch people.
Mm-hmm.
And little did I know that when daylight came, well, all those trucks were parked on a flat concrete pad out there, and the workers come in and they're allowed to use that door. So Jason just kind of looked at me and said, is it possible that it was on the outskirts of the tree row and it was seeing people do that? But why was it banging on the door? I don't understand the wall thing. It was like bang, 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 bang.
Maybe the
We
same
could see
reason
it.
why it throws stuff, or
Well,
the wood
what
box,
if it was
or
just testing it out to see if anybody was inside and if you were going to come out?
I don't know. But it did. It literally
Maybe
walked
it was
over.
drunk.
Justin was getting ready to grab that handle.
It wouldn't go to knock on the door.
All I know is I ended up on the sofa with
Housekeeping.
my covers over my head the rest of the night. But what was that?
See, I had a story like that happen to me, but it was an actual friend who decided to mess with me when I just moved in. Tim, if you're watching, I'm still very mad at you for that.
So that makes sense when you say that it actually watches and learns. Maybe that's what it was doing.
That's a possibility. Yeah.
It
That's
saw
what
people
they-
coming in that door, and I don't know. I'll never forget it though.
That's what a lot of researchers have actually said is what it does. It's watching you.
Interesting.
How do they say when it comes to knocking and screams or between each other, because sometimes when you're out in the field, the researchers have heard screams back and forth from different directions. They've heard knocks coming from different directions, like they're communicating with each other. But how are they saying what they realized about?
There's been research done recently by the MABRC, the Mid-American Bigfoot Research Center, where they actually went out into the woods on, I guess you call them logging roads, and they set up researchers at intervals at certain distances, and they would perform wood knocks, with one observation post being the main post for the listening, to determine how far, if they're hearing wood knocks in their research and out in the field, how close are these wood knocks actually? Are they a great distance away, or are they closer? Well, what they're finding is that through the series of these knocks and these posts that they set up in this research, is that the wood knocks are a lot closer than any researchers have ever realized, and that basically from this research, they're saying that if you're hearing wood knocks, they're basically close enough to see you.
Would, in that kind of instance, with the power behind whatever's causing that, would that be undetermined variable and something like that? Because if there's a lot of force going into it, that could have been, it could be louder, so it could have been further away. So is that, in that kind of research, is that judged at all?
That part isn't judged, but I do know that they use varying types of clubs and whatnot to try to mimic louder knocks, but they pretty much have it narrowed down to they're probably close enough to see you if you're hearing wood knocks in the field.
Now, so let's move a little further into what brought you into it.
In the Bigfoot?
Yes.
It would have been, what was it, 2013 when we went to Oklahoma? 2012?
2012, 2015, I can't remember.
We're bad about dates.
And here it comes back for the 7th episode.
Oklahoma again.
We'll talk about
But
it.
we've got some pics to go along with
That's
it too.
right.
So
Anyways, so I was with Everyday Legacy out in Oklahoma. And through the course of the very first time we went out there, we started experiencing things that were Sasquatch related. At least in my opinion they are. We were hearing wood knocks, vocalization. We had a vocalization at one point in the middle of the night that sounded like a gorilla had just lost it. That's the only way I can describe it. We had the camp stalking. We had several people hear the footfalls inside our camp area. And just, we had structures that we found. We found tree bins. We found shelter-like structures. We found branches that were twisted opposed to just broken. And to twist a branch, you would have to have thumbs. I mean, but yeah, we were finding stuff like that. And then after that, I kind of decided to start Bigfoot in Kansas, and we started Bigfoot in Kansas in about 2013, I believe, would be my best guess. And here we are today.
and since you started, how much luck have you had? Now, can anybody hear us while we're talking?
That's what I was just testing.
Okay. So we got some glitch in the video too. Like when we do that.
Or is it?
Oh, that's what we thought about last week too. But it's kind of doing the same thing as it was before. So can everybody hear us out there? Hello, hello. Everybody fell asleep. Come on, there's people.
Yeah,
watching.
there's sound going to it now. I don't know what
Okay.
happened before.
Well, in this photograph right here, this is a photograph that, you know, if I hadn't been around this field and have talked to Brendan about over multiple conversations, I would have seen that and thought, oh, yeah, there's a human just making that, you know, or it's natural, or it just happened to fall that way. This is a pic while Brendan and I are actually out in the field, and you remember this?
Yeah.
It's not Oklahoma, but this is the kind of structure that you can describe it.
This is kind of what I'd call some kind of territorial marker, possibly. I refer to them as teepee structures. It's basically several sticks that are put together, and then a lot of times you'll find other things, other branches like interwoven into it, or a tree pulled down and placed there with that structure sitting on it. And, you know, so it's a teepee structure.
Yeah, we've seen trees that are like, well, way over my head, way over Brendan's head too, that are just completely bent over into an archway, and it's just little symbols that researchers have pointed out, where they've actually seen activity, and these symbols are starting to like be present within their studies of it. So it's interesting that, you know, but going out with him out there, I've seen smaller versions of that. I've seen like that one that was just huge.
I remember the one in Tahlequah when we went out for a while. I don't remember if you were there that time or not. It actually had the bedding inside.
I
Were you
do-
there
Yeah, I
on
do
that
remember
one?
that. Yeah.
You know, and that wasn't something. I mean, they were huge. I mean, that's not something that a hunter.
I believe I actually crawled into it. I'm a pretty big guy, so it was a big structure.
That was amazing.
Yeah.
Now, can these be man-made?
Yes.
Okay. So then there's that. It can be. We're
It's
not
a
saying that it's
possibility.
not,
We're not saying it's not. That's right.
but given the fact that there's so much research going behind it, with
And the fact that these places are secluded, I mean, it takes us a good deal of time just to get there. I mean,
Oh,
Just a hike there is,
Yeah.
it's a long hike, and you're not seeing any trash or human traffic, no signs of human traffic, and yet here this structure
Yeah,
is.
no campfire. I mean, there'd
No
be a
campfire. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
just amazing.
absolutely no trash. There's animal feces here and there, so I mean, it's in the middle of nowhere where he takes me out to. We hike forever, you know, and
Well, that one that we went to that was interesting, wasn't there some bones of some sort that was some like animal
yeah, there was
car-
bones.
carcass
Yeah,
that was right? That was odd.
probably
You
here.
know,
Yeah.
that was odd.
So who knows? But
So, with your research, when you've done Bigfoot in Kansas, how do you explain like the chances of it actually happening in them living in Kansas?
living in Kansas, well, I'm going to kind of explain Kansas. Bigfooting in Kansas revolves a lot around the river systems. The river systems coming in from Oklahoma, Missouri, Colorado, or those are huge if you're Bigfooting in Kansas. And the reason is that those are easy highways from known Bigfoot territories in Oklahoma, for instance. Those are easy highways for them to come into Kansas. And I'm noticing from my research that the sightings in Kansas are heavy along those river systems. So, I mean, that's my focal point in Kansas, is definitely the river systems. But as far as living here, I don't think they're actually calling Kansas home. I think it's more of a traveling, maybe a migratory route, breeding, whether they're following food, but I don't think they're staying here.
So, following the rivers.
They're following the river systems, definitely. Following it to a certain point and then possibly going back.
Now, I know one particular area that you and I have gone out, done research at, 2 or 3 times together. There's a pretty big river right there that was passing through the area. Now, construction workers on the highway have actually seen, they're working on the bridge. They actually saw the creatures down in the river area.
They actually
Like,
found
as they were
prints,
working.
too. Yeah.
And prints. When we went together, it was fascinating to actually see, like, off in an area where, again, it's near fishing area. Okay, so it's near a lake, but in the area where we were hiking, I remember just walking along up by the river. It's kind of it's more like a creek section of the river. It was very,
it's a branch off the river.
it was very swampy like and everything. But in the dirt, walking along it, you saw the very faint images of steps of something huge. I mean, I'm saying feet probably about so big.
16 inches, I think.
Yeah, that with a heel about so big, about 5 inches.
Yeah,
maybe.
roughly.
That was walking along, and there were several of them. And the thing is like I was there, he was there. I had my father there. Happy Father's Day. And we actually could see like it taking the steps. Just by you can see how the width of it and the girth of the steps, how wide it was. It was. I mean, what was it about?
Man, it was. I don't remember exactly, but I had to jump
Yeah.
to make it, and I literally had to throw myself forward to get to the next step.
But yeah, we were seeing that. Plus, we were actually able to cast a print while we were out there, and this was in the middle of a field where I would never have seen it. We just happened to be hiking along out there, and there's some grass, everything up. The ground was it was pretty soft per se in certain areas.
It got a little sandy in some spots.
But lo and behold, he found a print, and it was
Right there.
pretty big, out in the middle of this very secluded field that no one was around.
And where was this at?
It was not far from the river,
It was, yeah, it's pretty close to the river, actually. Very close.
was it?
Yes. In between the lake and the river.
Yes. I mean, it goes along with all the sightings that they're seeing out there, and the fact that we were able to cast a print and take it home.
And there's been histories of sightings in that area for years. I mean, we're talking 20 years maybe.
Right.
Yeah.
So, now going back to Tahlequah, our favorite location. For myself, which, I've always been a believer, but yet I've never seen one. I've never encountered, never thought I would. On our very first trip several years ago, it was, he actually found a print not far from the house that we were at, and there's a print right there in the woods. But let me back up just a minute. Can you show the picture of his foot next to a print that we found out in that area where the river and that lake in western Kansas that we found? Just so you can see what we're talking about when it comes to some of the prints we found. And I would put my foot up against it, but it doesn't. But how big's your foot?
Mine is 13.
13 inches.
That's roughly 18 to 19.
That was on a path. It was just the one print that we found.
It stepped into a trail and then back into the brush.
Right. It was crossing our path when we were actually going forward on it. And it was going this way when we were going forward to it. So it crossed at some point.
That is a huge, huge permit.
And were we able to cast it? No, we didn't have any because I honestly wasn't expecting to see anything like that. I mean, we were just kind of doing a day hike or anything like that. Can you see that, Michelle? Mm-hmm. But, how do you explain that? I mean, is it hoax? Somebody running out there in the middle of nowhere, just stamping it and running off? Or,
The random stamping.
That's what I do on my weekend.
the random stamping squatcher?
Just one and then run off.
I don't know. I mean, if somebody is really, truly wanting to do that, I guess they could. It was an area where you could go hiking. It was an area you could, go on to.
I wish the camera did more justice to the print because there was a section here where it divots down where the big tarsal break is, and that's where the foot, when it came up, would have pushed the dirt deeper than the heel.
Right.
The camera just doesn't do it justice.
It's interesting.
But,
Yeah,
now,
because you're not, who's going to go out? I guess you could. Were you sitting on your couch one day, hey buddy, let's go out and jack the people, and walk
Right.
2.5 hours.
It's a situation where the only people that knew where we were our wives.
Yeah.
Nobody else knew where we were going. Nobody, and this was our first time out there. It was like, let's go check this out. So who's going around with a stamp and stamping the ground?
just once and moving on.
So, I don't know. That's
Could be.
it's a big network of foot stampers.
So, what
We're sitting
comes
at home
what
laughing
comes
right
with
now.
the you've got the knocks, you've got stuff like that. What's up with the smell? Have you ever, either one of you, been in a situation where you actually smell what everybody says because they seem like they get stuff thrown at them, and there's that god awful smell. Where does the smell? Have you ever found out what that comes from?
And the smell isn't always associated with this. Some
Right.
people see this as sighting and they don't have the smell.
I think he would smell. He's covered in hair and out in the wilderness.
Lays out in the woods.
It's
all
not like
day,
he has Bed Bath and Beyond or
digs through trash.
Bath and Body Works, availability.
He's
So
not getting his nails did. So yeah, he'd stink pretty bad. But I've never actually encountered any odor, but I've definitely taken sighting accounts that the individuals described an odor. But it's a putrid, skunky, wet dog mixture of a smell is what they usually describe to us.
Right. So, you have anything to add there, Michelle? No?
You know, that came with a story, and I know we all have stories, but, you know, one thing that, you know, I've always been kind of reluctant to believe in this, but and I still got to get with him, with you guys. I had a friend of ours that was a mechanic, and he's an elderly person, and he's always, I mean, I've known him for several years, my kids have known him, and he's a pretty straight, down-to-earth person, you know, not jacking around much. And he found out over the years that we'd been going to him at his house to drop our cars off to work on that we were in the paranormal stuff. And he asked me one day when he was working on my car out there, and I decided to stay a little while, and I offended him. And I shouldn't have done that. But it was kind of funny because he goes, well, let me ask you this. You do this, but he's sitting on his little stool and he goes, no, just hear me out. What do you think about Bigfoot? And I just laughed and laughed. I said, oh, God, please don't tell me you're into this thing, too. You know, please. You know, because you know me, when we first met, I was like, you know, and no, not being disrespectful, but just very, you know, my opinion, I was pretty strong with it.
We've gone around.
But it was kind of funny because he sat there and looked at me, and this guy got really frustrated with me. He got not angry, but he was like, what do you call me, a liar? And the story was, it was kind of funny. He said, you know, he bow hunts. And he said there's some land, and do you remember the story where the land, where's that at?
It's way south of Wichita.
Okay, so he's out on some farmland, and he said there's only two people in the world that knows where that hunting spot is. His son and his wife. Well, I guess the farmer I lied, 3. And so anytime he ever goes, if nobody hears from him, either his mom or his wife or his son can go find him and say, did you fall out of the tree somehow? He claims, and this is when he got irritated at me, he claims he was sitting up there, and he said all of a sudden he started getting stuff thrown at him. And he said, bro, and I was like, oh God, here we go, you know. And boy, that's when he jumped up and looked at me and just said, hey. And I was like, okay, you know. And he said he started getting rocks, anything that was like a pebble, something thrown at him. And he said, you know, I'm in this little deer stand way up, just going, what? And you're looking around, and he said, I couldn't see anything. And he said it was coming from the side, and he was hearing knocks. And then he said the smell was so bad, he about lost it up there. And he said he's finally drawn his bow, you know, thinking, are there kids out here, Jack? But he's like, I've been coming out here for years, and nothing like this has ever happened. It scared him so much that he called his wife and said, come get me, bring everybody you got. And I just looked at him like, you know, I don't want to say his name, but, you know, he got frustrated with me the first time in like 4 years. He got mad at me because, I mean, I guess I didn't believe him. But, you know, when I sat back, why would he just come up with this story? Right. You know, and for a grown man to not want to come out of your deer stand, you know. But once again, he goes, man, there was the knocks. He said there was like a growl or two. And he said he was out kind of, you know, along the tree line, and he said he kept looking and couldn't see a damn thing. But he said it'd go over here. He said it was almost like they were in multiples, and it would come and the rocks would come from this direction.
But there was more than one?
There was more than one. And he said that the smell, that all of a sudden the smell, and he said he just felt like he was going to lose it up there. And he's scared to death. And so he called, and of course here comes his wife, and then he just told him, you know, I don't want to talk about it, just come get me. He didn't even go down. He got in the truck with his son, his wife drove his truck back. Interesting.
Yeah, very.
But I wish I knew the name of where it was. I can't remember. But he's invited us over a couple times to talk about that, and I've just never gotten a chance to, because he's like, I need to tell somebody that story. They think I'm nuts, like you. And I was like,
Let's do it though, yeah. Let's get out there and
I'll
talk to him.
try to call him sometime.
But I get a lot of stories like that from hunters in Kansas, especially southeastern Kansas, where they're in deer stands and just stuff starts happening. They have a sighting. There's even some instances where I know of hunters that want to talk, but they won't talk. It's just a pride thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's very interesting when that happens.
Speaking of sightings, for any of you who have heard our previous episodes and heard us talk about, especially in episode 1 when we were talking about some of our favorite cases and everything in back to Oklahoma when you had your sighting.
Right.
The sighting that you had, now granted it was at night.
It was like 2 in the morning.
2 in the morning. You
That's one of my favorites.
You guys were
Sorry.
in a camper. I was not there. Michelle was not there. You were not there.
Leo and Renee.
Leo and Renee were with you
Right.
in the camper.
Right.
Where was
You guys were
Michelle?
at the
Where were you at?
Hotel.
hotel or the cemetery, I think.
I thought you said you were
No,
in the
we
cemetery.
were, I
They
think
were-
we were at the cemetery with
You were at the
everybody
cemetery,
else.
okay.
Because that was we were out there that night.
Okay. So, and we've got a couple of daylight pics to show. Now, set up what you saw that night when it happened.
Basically, what I seen, in short, because it's a long story, but I was inside of an RV, sitting on a couch, talking to Leo, and going over some audio he wanted to show me on his laptop. And things started happening around us, like the dogs ran off into the woods. They come trotting back like something had whooped them, like they're scared or something. One of them even actually kind of did a snarl, yelp, growl, like back towards the woods as it came running by the front of the RV. So I'm sitting there, and we turn the lights off, and I'm looking out the window and watching, and I just see this figure, like kneeled down, massive figure. Big. It made me feel little, but it was just kneeling there, and it was rubbing its hands over the grass, like just motioning it back and forth, top and bottom. It was just
You said you could see the palms.
I could see the palms, the different. I don't know if a different color or what, but it was a different color than the rest of it. It was just very. It was crazy.
So you came out.
So I ended up, I'm like, I've got to see this thing. So I'm trying to be sneaky, and at 6'4", 250 some pounds, it's hard to sneak up on something. So I stand up, and as I step forward to head towards the door, I tripped over a charger cord for a laptop and made a big ruckus. Kind of stumbled towards the door, stumbled out the door basically, and by the time I got out there, the figure was gone.
It's one of my favorite stories about there.
Yeah.
Now, when you say there could have been multiples, just kind of
Right.
like your friend was saying, there's multiple possible coming from different angles. What happened after you got out there to the spot?
I went out there, I went to investigate the spot that it was actually at, found the print, but as I'm standing there looking this over, I'm still weary. I can hear it heading through the woods. I could hear it.
Away
It
from
wasn't, away from me. It wasn't like it was stampeding through it. It was like it was slowly crunching its way towards the back of the property. As it's doing that, on the other side of the property, there's this big, you have the house, you have the area where it happened, and you have a clearing, and then another part of that wooded section that goes down into that hollow. From that other end, branches started breaking, and I'm talking like not the little twig, I'm talking huge branches were snapping and breaking, and this happened like 5 or 6 times. So what I'm thinking we experienced was a multiple Sasquatches and the ones on the other side were trying to draw our attention while the other one was escaping.
Is
Is
that when we pulled up?
That's when you guys pulled up.
Yeah, because you guys had that thing lit up like a Christmas tree.
Oh yeah, we had every light we could find turned on. But
So, go now, Brendan. The next morning, Brendan actually went outside to kind of imitate what he saw, but the picture is from inside where he was looking out. Now, Brendan, you're 6'4".
6'4".
So he's knelt down in the grass. This is where he saw it.
This picture was basically taken from my vantage point.
Now, 6'4", and you said the creature was
It was
probably
another foot over my head, maybe. Top of its head.
so. Not to use myself, but yeah, basically right from here.
About
So you standing, that's kneeling.
So that's kneeling for the creature you saw.
yes, that would have been it kneeling down.
I would have peed myself. That's probably what I would have done had I seen that. But that makes sense from the two dogs that were, the two pits, sorry, I had to. But the two pits that were running from there on the property, they were running across this side, on the right side of the
Right.
RV looking out,
Yes.
running that way looking back.
And
Now-
guys, I got to tell you too, these pits that are out there, they've never seen the inside of a home. I
Right.
mean, they're out there in the summer, the winter. I mean, they basically live under a porch.
They know
they're
their
not scared
property
of
very,
anything.
very well.
Oh, they're very sweet dogs.
Very
Oh,
sweet.
Very
Oh my
nice.
goodness, yes. They loved up on all of us, but the moment they hear something, they're beelining right to it to bark, growl, attack. But especially if it's unknown, like a deer or anything around the property. But this was making them run away.
Yes.
And the male, who's a huge male pit, was the first to go by.
Mm-hmm. And the female came second.
Now, the other grass pick that you have that's there, I believe you have a measurement of it
Yeah.
next to it. This is the area of the print that now it was wet grass. That's why it was pretty silent that night when they were out there. Again, I missed it, and it's really hard to see, but
Again, the photo doesn't do it justice
Right.
at all. But you're looking at maybe 17, 18 inches from where the heel is here to where the toes are there.
now you and Leo both said that you saw the grass actually coming up,
Yes.
as if something was standing there, pressing it down,
Like it had pressed down and
It was pressed down.
puffing back out.
and it was moving back up.
Yeah, because actually you smacked my leg because I almost,
stepped on it.
yeah. Because I
Good
got
job,
up,
bro.
I got up the next morning going, okay, what are you guys doing? You know, and I walk over there and then Brendan just smacked the right side of my leg, and I'll never forget. You know, just like, what do you do? What is that? You know, and I mean, it was great. It was amazing.
Now, on this particular trip, there was we were there to do a paranormal investigation of a house too. So we have this going on at the same time. We are up by the house. We left camp to go and see about the haunting that was up there. What we didn't know is that I guess I didn't know that Jeremiah left his recorder on the table in camp. I don't know if he did that on purpose or if that was just pure luck or chance. But he left his recorder on the table. It wasn't until after we got back when Jeremiah was going over it. And what sounds like something coming into camp, where you can hear us off in the distance, but you hear something walk into camp, and it's actually breathing and sniffing around, basically.
Kind of growling and snarling.
Yeah, you do not. It doesn't sound like a bear. It doesn't sound like a coyote. It doesn't, and we had no clue. I mean, no clue that this was going on.
And this is before the campfire was lit or anything, so it was pitch black.
Right.
Like you couldn't see your hand in front of your face.
Right. So what we want to play is the audio to this. It's about 6 minutes. It's about 7 minutes long. So we're going to take a little bit just to have you listen to the whole thing transpire.
doesn't show everything, because there's an instance during that where you actually hear a wood knock before you hear it approach, step for step for step, and then the growling noise or whatever it is, and then you hear it retreat. So there's more to it than just the footsteps and then the growling and the retreating. There was actually a wood knock before any of that happened.
And I think when we were there, weren't we shooting that pilot? Isn't that where Casey, one of the production guys, actually caught that didn't he, that night? Is that who caught the first part of that? He was back in his tent going over some stuff? Or
It was all Jeremiah.
It was all Jeremiah.
Yeah, that was all Jeremiah.
Okay. Yeah. Sorry, Jeremiah, if you go back and listen to this. I thought that was just amazing. That was, I mean, to think, and you guys don't get the full picture, but you know, the property, it was like a horseshoe. And, you know, there's a house, and then there, you know, was a burnt down, you know, trailer. And then there was a house, and on that last photo that we put up where you see Brendan, you know, sitting down and you're looking at him through the camper or the RV, that road that you see just a little ways from there is where we were at when we first got there when it got dark. And I mean, we're talking, we were 40 yards away from what you guys just heard.
Well, shoot, and Michelle and Paula actually slept in their car, like not far from where that actually happened.
Yeah, well, I was thinking about that when I went to sleep. I sure don't want to wake up and see Bigfoot.
Well, who's to say it didn't?
Would you have your camera ready would be the question.
No, the camera would not have been on my mind.
You know, and I'm probably going too far. I mean, we only have 15 minutes left, but you know, I've been with this team for about, you know, well, right at that part in time, it was maybe 2 years, and we have a lady that works with us, Renee, and I think Renee's actually listening. And Renee's a very outgoing person. I mean, she hears something and she's running towards it.
Right.
She's got a lot of experience. She's been with you guys since day one, and you know that night that happened. You know, I remember going into the RV to get ready, and she was there, and she was shaking. You know, because she had seen it, and I remember the next day when we were shooting the pilot. You guys were, you know, on the pilot. It's when they were asking you guys to sum up everything. Do you remember that? And when we were waiting, one thing that caught my interest of the whole thing is, you know, when you're shooting a pilot and you're getting ready to possibly be on TV and somebody knocks on your door and says, come on, we're getting ready to wrap this up and make the final shot. She didn't want to be a part of it.
Right.
She was still scared to death of what, you know, of what had happened and didn't want to come out of the RV. I kind of remember that now, that had happened. And so that's pretty interesting.
And I could tell as it unfolded that she was a little unnerved by the whole situation. Because my natural instinct was to go into the woods. Well, I wasn't in a position to do that because I didn't want to endanger anybody else. And there's, you know, she was already shaking. Leo was a little shook up too by the whole thing. So, I mean, it definitely had an effect on all three of us. But
and then when we got in a few minutes after that had happened, I just, you know, I remember it was, you know, I could see them. I mean, your guys'
all their reactions
their
to
reactions
it was
to it were
pretty believable.
yeah.
To it. I mean, I even saw Leo. He was pretty. He was pumped.
Intense.
He was pumped up. He was out there searching around. I was kind of following him. You were like, I think you were just like all over the place trying to keep him see something. Yes, sir.
In that kind of situation, is it because it was Oklahoma? That's why there was different, I don't know, like feelings about it, like being shook up or whatever, or is it just because of that situation that happened? Because
just the situation.
Oklahoma was crazy by itself.
Yeah, by itself it was crazy. So you had all this craziness built up to this peak, and then
And I'm sure Michelle feels the same way. I mean, I wish we would have been there to see all the excitement at the hand at the time, but
I didn't know.
missed it.
I didn't know what to do because I had the footfalls retreating into the woods. Then you had the branches breaking on the other side, and I wanted to pull myself in both directions. You know,
So yeah, I was kind of wandering around, like, where do I go? Do I chase the trees breaking over here? Do I follow the footsteps into the? I don't even.
And you wouldn't have caught him anyway.
I wouldn't have caught him anyway. But, yeah.
Now, if we can pull up the famous photograph, the one that everybody knows
That is a good one.
about that. And this is probably one of the clearer pics that was able to find.
I think he's doing the pose a little bit.
Yeah, he is, except he's looking the wrong way.
That's
Yeah, it is working. Now, the reason why this film is, I mean, I don't know if you have ever seen the entire film, is Patterson, he's falling off his horse because the horse is freaking out because
the horse reared up on him.
he falls off, he sees the creature, he grabs his camera, old camera, this is 1965? 67. So, you know, it's a huge camera and it's old.
Clunky.
Yeah. But he reels it, and what you see is the creature walking. And it's walking away from him pretty quickly. And at one point, it does turn and look at him. Now, what people always see is how it turns its whole body, its upper torso. It turns and looks. It doesn't just turn its head, it turns its whole body. Now, like you even said, you know, it's like it's looking behind. It's looking away. So of course you've got to turn and look your whole body around. But what you also see there, you can definitely tell, and even in the video, you can tell it's female. Because there are breasts, and there's been a lot of people who have gone over this many, many times who say,
It's right here.
yeah, that you see those
Those
growth.
Those
You
are,
see those?
Those are boobies.
Since
Those-
the picture came out.
It's been there for a while.
Yep.
You see what we're talking about? What makes
yeah.
it female?
Yep.
Okay.
I never
No,
noticed that.
so that's what a lot of
Never.
people don't know is that it has female features, and the fact that when the figure is moving, a lot of people who have analyzed it has said that you can see the muscle tone in its legs as it's moving. It's not
Yeah,
suit.
if you actually watch the film, you can see the muscle jiggling as it's moving. I mean, you can see it flowing like a
Well, and I
living
heard
creature.
too, one time somebody had actually recreated this exact in the same area, and you know, took the videos, hooked stuff up, and tried to see exactly. And
They did.
They did, and it was amazing because it wasn't even close.
Right.
The way the body movement was versus
Yeah.
man versus what this was, it wasn't even
And
close.
from the animatronic motion of it, is that right? Animatronic
Yeah.
motion. They even did computer analyzed it to where how the knees are moving to how the human was walking, all that. It didn't match up.
I mean, Henson didn't even have that good of animatronics back in
Right.
1967.
And back then, even some of the Hollywood makeup artists today said that back then there's no way they would have had such a capability of a suit back then. And just to throw it up for one brief moment and never seen the suit again.
And not to mention where
So you burned it.
the torso to the hips is long, the arms are long. I mean, the body
Yeah.
proportions are not human.
No, it's.
I
it's
should've-
Like, it would
I
have been baggy if it would have had
Except-
somebody
Yeah.
like under it.
And I should have got the picture that shows side by side of a person in a suit walking, and that figure.
Well,
But-
Brendan's the tallest. Just go ahead and have him stand up.
But yeah, so that's the famous photograph and video that everybody's always seeing in Bigfoot. When they think of Bigfoot, this is what they always think about, is that. But if you go back and, don't take our word for it, you go back and read on it and see the research they have put into seeing whether or not this could have been faked or how possible it could have been real.
I believe it's covered extensively in
Right,
The
in
book
that
over
in
there.
that book over there, yeah. But
Legend Meets Science.
there's
Jeff
can they
Meldrum.
see that? Or do we still got the picture up?
Me too. I'm sorry, that was my fault.
Computer operator.
Well, I was trying. I'm like looking on one side to see if it's bigger.
But yeah, it is seen through this book and through the. I mean, they even have a documentary on this book too, which is really good. But Jeff Meldrum, he's been on different TV shows for Monster Quest, if you remember that. He was on there doing an expedition with a lot of people. You've told me countless stories about Jeff Meldrum and the research he's done.
He's my go-to guy.
But just another picture of, just to show that it is out there in the mainstream media and just everywhere. Like you go to Colorado, and Jeremiah even said, hey, there's sightings all over Pikes Peak. There's sightings all over that. And my wife, who went up to Colorado, she had to send me this picture as she was going up to Pikes Peak one time with her friend, Stacy. And I loved it because this is an actual sign that's on Pikes Peak that actually warns you of a Bigfoot crossing. Like, they actually have this out there. I mean, it's... I mean, it's up there.
It's amazing.
That they have to make a sign because there's been so many sightings out there that they had to do it. And this is on the way up to Pikes Peak.
And it says due to sightings in the area.
I'm not sure which side she got this on. I was just psyched that she sent it to me.
But it says due to sightings in the area of a creature resembling Bigfoot, quotations.
Right.
This sign has been posted for your safety.
Right. I love how they separate Bigfoot, instead of, I can't even get that right. But the fact that it's there is awesome. Everything, and I thank my wife for posing for that out in the cold. But yeah, it's, it's everywhere. And we've only got about 5 minutes left. Man, what a quick 2 hours.
It went by fast, didn't it?
So, Michelle, any comments?
Well, I think, what is the theory on what they eat?
Yeah.
They don't? Is that what you just said?
No, I said there you go.
Oh, I thought you said they
They
don't.
don't eat it all. They're aliens.
Because I know there's a question
They
about
teleport.
what,
Pretty much, from what I can gather, if a black bear eats it, a Bigfoot will eat it. I mean, a lot of the reports of Sasquatch come from black bear territory. So.
And isn't it, I've heard you tell me that most of the time when the researchers are out, if you hear coyotes, there's a good chance.
Yes, there's a running theory that they will follow packs of coyotes to kind of scavenge off their deer kills and so on and so forth.
Interesting.
So you never know.
Yep.
You never know.
Listen to those coyote calls real close.
Well, that makes me real excited for next coyote.
Go out to We've got to get you all out hiking. Come on.
Do I look like I hike?
but that, I just had that one question.
Is that it?
Yep.
Well, I mean, there's hundreds of stories we could go over. Teddy Roosevelt had a sighting. I don't know if he had a sighting. I know he had a story that he wrote into his book, The Wilderness Hunter, back in the 1800s. When he published it in 1893. A very famous story in that. We'll get to it to another time. It's a very fascinating story. I mean, the list goes on and on of footage and everything like that. And I don't know. I guess it's up for everybody to decide or conclude to. For those of us who go out in the field and research it and have been put into predicaments where things have been thrown at us, screamed at us, and stuff like that with casting things, it's pretty amazing.
It's hard for us to dismiss it.
Yeah.
When we're in those situations, it's hard for us to say it doesn't exist.
Yeah. Final thoughts?
Anything
See
else?
if you're paying attention.
Yeah, final thoughts. Man, I'd like to first thank Brendan for coming out. Really appreciate that, and also for getting to experience that stuff that night. A few minutes after you.
Right.
And You know, I used to not believe until I saw that footprint, you know, so now it's, you know, it's got me intrigued. So
I know it's hard for you to do.
I know. I know.
I see it in your face. I see it in your
It's so
face.
frustrating because, you know,
Michelle, any final thoughts on it?
I think my concern is just what happens when we do find it, for sure.
That is a definite,
That, it's my concern.
yeah. That's definitely a concern for mine. I think a lot of people who
Yeah.
are into it and everything.
Definitely.
But, you know, that's a whole nother, like,
Yeah.
hour.
To be continued.
Yes,
there'll
this
be
is
a
definitely.
lot. There'll be a lot of
continued.
shows if I told you so.
Because we're going to still actively investigate. We're going to be going back out in the field soon.
Hopefully this fall.
Yes, because I like to stay away from ticks
Yes,
too.
we're not fans of the tick.
They're a fan of us
A lot of
them.
them.
because they're always climbing on. But
I'm looking forward to you guys going live
Oh yeah.
in the fall. That'll be
oh
fun.
yes,
That'll be fun.
now that we can, yeah,
Let's do it.
absolutely, absolutely. But we've got some events coming up. We've got Nest City. Investigating the bank in Nest City, July 29th. Tickets are still there if you want to get a hold of us and find out when that is. And also the Ghost Tours of Wichita, Ghost Tours of Kansas for Ghost Tours of the Ghost Tours in Wichita. I can't talk. Still tickets on sale for this for the 30th of this month. So let us know. Anyway, it's been a fun episode. Everyone's playing with the dog now.
You brought toys.
I still love that.
But anyway, this is Jason, Brendan, Roth, and Michelle with Cryptic Heartland. Leo will be back next week as well, and hopefully you come back more often
I will try to, definitely.
and everything. But from Max and Jamie in the background,
Thank you guys.
helping us,
Night.
we'll see you next week.
Good night.